Today's was one of the first of many such hearings scheduled to be held around the country during the summer months. This one in Montgomery concerned the future of the Floridian, the Amtrak passenger service that runs through the capital city. Under a Department of Transportation recommendation, this route would be abolished. A wide variety of spokesmen appeared before the sparsely populated auditorium, each with his own set of reasons to keep Amtrak. One even sang his. Several congressmen sent representatives from Washington, and Governor Wallace, who was scheduled to appear, at the last minute decided to present his testimony in written form.
My name is Walter Bamberg.
In all, today's hearing appeared to be the last chance to air the now familiar cries to keep passenger service rolling in Central and South Alabama.
Suffice it to say that Congressman Dickinson remains adamantly opposed to the presently proposed changes in routes which would, for all practicable purposes, completely eliminate rail passenger service in South Alabama. And as I say, he wishes this, of course, to be a matter of public record. The justifications for retaining the present route through Montgomery, in our opinion, are comparable to any evidence presented in support of the proposed route changes. In either case, substantial sums of the citizens' tax dollars will be required. We simply feel that the taxpayers of Alabama are as entitled to the benefits of these outlays as are the citizens of any other state.
The first issue is to keep what we now have, the Floridian route. It is presently the only regularly scheduled passenger service Amtrak offers to the Montgomery catchment area. The train presently passes through Union Station, northbound at 9 in the morning and southbound at 7:18 p.m. This is a vast improvement over the previous schedule that had the train passing through Montgomery in the middle of the night. Ridership has improved due to the schedule change, proving that a reasonable schedule will attract passengers. At the time of the last public hearing in October, Montgomery was the 7th busiest station along the Floridian route. These people must be strong supporters of a rail system to travel in spite of inconvenient schedules. We feel that this illustrates a strong commitment on the part of these Montgomery passengers to the rail system.
The United States Congress showed considerable sentiment in favor of this passenger line last year when it voted to increase supplemental appropriations for Amtrak from $8 million to $18 million, with major support for this increase from those representing states along the Floridian route. Just last week, the House of Representatives rejected an amendment to the Amtrak appropriations bill, which would have cut routes such as the Floridian from the Amtrak schedule. In my opinion, the fact that this line has operated at a loss can be traced in a large part to poor management, poor marketing, and poor scheduling.
The testimony from this and other hearings will be used to form final input for the decision on whether or not to hatchet the Floridian, a decision that many believe has already been made. Bill Weaver, WSFA TV News.
Government studies show that 237,000 teenagers became pregnant and delivered babies in 1977 in the United States. Alabama's share of that number was 6,000. Medical authorities say this state is number 3 on the list of teenage pregnancies. Some young girls as young as 12 have had children in this medical center. And the man who sees them is Dr. Roosevelt McCorvey, an obstetrician and gynecologist. Dr. McCorvey is alarmed about the problem and says many dangers exist for youngsters who become pregnant.
The dangers with a teenager and pregnant evolves around 2 facets, the mother and the infant that she's carrying. There seems to be a 2 to 5 times greater chance of the baby itself having some type of congenital abnormalities. In addition to that, the infant morbidity and mortality rate is double to 3 times that of a lady that is in the quote-unquote acceptable range for pregnancy, which seems to be around 20 to 35 years of age. As far as the mother is concerned, there are certain disease entities that we know that are more prevalent with the teenage mother. In addition to that, the morbidity and mortality rate that pertains to this kind of situation is also increased, so that you have problems not only for the infant but also for the mother.
This is the third pregnancy for this 15-year-old junior high school student.
Are you in school now?
Yeah.
What school do you go to?
Ball.
You're going to school while you're pregnant, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Has this pregnancy done anything to change your life at all?
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
No, sir.
What do your parents say about you being pregnant 3 times?
Started fussing.
What do they say?
They told me don't get pregnant no more.
Is that all?
That's all.
Did they try to take you to a doctor to find any birth control method, pills, or anything like that?
No, sir.
They just said, don't get pregnant again.
Yes, sir.
How old were you when you first became pregnant?
14.
What did they say then?
Started fussing then.
What did they say when they fussed?
I mess around with them boys.
In our next report, a look at what may be the cause of the problem of teenage pregnancies. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Fairview Medical Center. Teenage pregnancy is being called a serious public health problem. The country's leading experts in obstetrics and gynecology say the leading cause of out-of-wedlock pregnancies in females 15 to 19 years old is ignorance of available contraception methods. Among 6 other reasons given by young children who became pregnant were moral and medical objections. Many say they thought they could not become pregnant during certain times of the year. Other teenage mothers told doctors they didn't mind becoming pregnant. Here in Montgomery at Fairview Medical Center, one 15-year-old, now into her 3rd pregnancy, gave this reason for not continuing to use oral contraceptives after 2 unsuccessful pregnancies.
I don't like them.
Why don't you like them?
They don't taste right.
They don't taste right? Do you know other girls who are your age who are pregnant or who would like to be pregnant? You do? Do you know other girls who wish that they were pregnant who would be your age?
No.
People that you go to school with, you know? What you think is going to become of you if you keep becoming pregnant?
Nothing.
Nothing? Who will support the child when it's born?
The baby dad.
Obstetrician gynecologist Dr. Roosevelt McCorvey sees many teenage mothers here at Fairview each year and has definite opinions about the solution to the problem and its causes.
I think it has to do with the ready availability of birth control methods. A lot of times a kid will think that they are ready for it, and they'll take it for a while, and after a while they get tired of taking this pill every morning, or the IUD start to cause some problem like bleeding or what have you, and then they terminate without follow-up. They terminate the method of contraception.
There have been some questions and objections concerning our interview with the 15-year-old child who is pregnant for the 3rd time. The answer is, she is 15 and she is pregnant again. Public health officials say she is not the only one in that position, and they say the problem is not being solved. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News at the Fairview Medical Center.
Tons of earth are moved into place daily along the Mammoth Alabama Power Company project near Wetumpka. It was almost 3.5 years ago when trouble first began here. In the middle of the night, a lone security guard discovered leaks in the dam. Those leaks in the next hours gave way to a major break. A gaping hole opened up in the earthen structure, sending rushing waters of the Coosa River searching for lower ground. Alabama Power's 225,000 kilowatt hydroelectric generating plant was overrun. Work crews upstream moved swiftly to keep the overall danger to a minimum. They lowered a reservoir behind Jordan Dam to a depth much lower than normal. Downstream, however, the cleanup was massive. Where pleasure boats had once bobbed at their moors, they now sat high and dry. Others of them were torn loose and swept away by the fast-moving currents. Almost immediately, plans began to rebuild, and by last July, construction teams had moved onto the site. Since then, giant earth movers have raced 3 shifts a day making repairs. One engineer tells us the effort is about 2 months behind schedule at this point, in spite of current weather conditions.
The same hot weather that's causing us trouble with air conditioner are allowing the contractors to move dirt at a maximum pace up there. We anticipate that that dam will be completed about the middle of 1979. And work right now is being done on a new earth dam, compaction of the dirt, and pouring concrete.
Well, how does Walter Baldwin fit into Alabama Power's dam system?
Walter Baldwin gets their water supply off of Lake Jordan by a canal, and that canal is shut off right now while this work is being done.
So the machines and men push on through near 100-degree heat and humidity. Indications are now the dirt and the concrete will be fully in place once again by September 1979. Jack Margraves, WSFA TV News, Elmore County.
The sentencing was scheduled for 9 o'clock this morning here in Montgomery Circuit Court. Mrs. Allen, her husband Marvin, her son Randy, and her attorney Jim Atchison from Mobile arrived at the courthouse at around 20 minutes to 9. Yeah. Before being sentenced, Montgomery Circuit Court Judge Perry Hooper asked Mrs. Allen if she had anything to say. She replied, "Your Honor, I'm absolutely not guilty." Hooper said, considering the nature of the offense, Melba Till Allen, I sentence you to 1 year in the penitentiary to run concurrently with a 3-year sentence handed down May 24th for a violation of the state ethics law. The district attorney asked for and received from the judge a motion to drop 2 remaining indictments against the former state treasurer. Mrs. Allen's attorney said the 2 convictions would be appealed.
We definitely will. I'm going to try to get it done soon, perhaps even before the term of office is over. And if they're reversed and remanded and sent back, I have no doubt with a new jury starting over in this case, now that I know everything about it, and this lady, it would be vastly different in presenting the whole matter.
What about the sentence, Mrs. Allen?
Well, I can say this is better than the other time.
How are you feeling, Miss Simmons?
Well, I feel fine. I have had respect for the court, so now if I'm not going to be in court, I can spend more time getting up all the facts that all of you and all the people of Alabama need to know, and I'm looking forward to that.
Mrs. Allen, you said you had to take time to get some things together. What are you getting together?
Facts.
What type facts? What are they dealing with?
People who fed all of this garbage to the newspaper, and I think it's very wrong to make false accusations. And if you remember back the 8 years I was auditor, I never told you one thing I couldn't back up, and that's the way it'll be this time.
Montgomery District Attorney Jimmy Evans, who would make no public comments during the trials, did break that silence today.
It is tremendously important to the people of this state that public officials realize that the ethics law is designed for the people and is designed to protect their right to know. And this office, whenever the Ethics Commission turns a case over dealing with the Ethics Act in this office, it will be vigorously prosecuted. This office supports the Ethics Act. People of Montgomery County support it. They'll be vigorously prosecuted to a conclusion, and we don't take the Ethics Act lightly in the District Attorney's office. And
how much public opinion did you receive in your office during the process of the trial?
George, we had several letters from people supporting the prosecution, but I didn't feel like it was proper to make some grandstand play of it, and wouldn't want to do it at this time, only to say that there were letters that we received telling us that the authors of those letters or the writers of those letters expressed support for the prosecution.
Evans would not comment on why he thought Judge Hooper granted his motion to drop the remaining 2 indictments against Mrs. Allen. From the Montgomery County Courthouse, George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
In this city, many black citizens are employed because of affirmative action and other programs designed to help blacks secure employment. The reaction in Montgomery to the Bakke decision came from several attorneys, and it ranged from disappointment, prompted by feelings that blacks would be set back in employment opportunities, to a statement that the ruling will have little or no effect on affirmative action and other programs designed to help ease the impact of decades of discrimination against blacks.
I feel it destroys all of your affirmative action programs and any other type of program or activity that is going on or being effectuated to remedied past discrimination as relate to blacks and other minorities, particularly in your graduate schools, your professional schools, and your job-related areas such as unions and other large corporations that have put these programs into effect to aid blacks and other minorities to come into the job market. I think it destroys those programs.
I don't believe, from what I've heard about the Bakke decision, that it opens the door for every white person who might feel that he's been discriminated against to go into court for redress. I think the great social change has already occurred in this country, and I don't think any court decision is likely to make much of an alteration in what has already happened.
Norman, I don't think that the Bakke decision is going to have a very severe impact on those particular areas. The Bakke decision is an extremely narrow opinion, and only one justice out of the 9 thinks that Bakke was treated unconstitutionally. The 4 other justices think that what happened to him was a violation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, and 4 other justices say there was nothing wrong. Even the 4 justices that say that Bakke's rights under the Civil Rights Act were violated are very careful to say that in no way, shape, or form do they want to rule on the question of whether you can have affirmative action programs.
Several local black leaders we talked to about the decision said today, the action carries bad consequences for the hope of racial equality in the United States, closing the doors of influence and opportunity for blacks.
Among the many explanations from legal experts in Alabama, we find that one legal scholar says that because blacks stopped agitating and marching in the streets and protesting, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Alan Bakke. We were told by the scholar that had these things kept up, the white community would not have been lulled to believe that everything was all right with blacks and they had all the opportunities that they needed to get them ahead economically and socially. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
According to a recent survey of typical residential electric bills, Alabama Power Company ranks 20th from the bottom among 60 areas of the United States. The company's charge to residential customers for June was $41.24 per 1,000 kilowatt hours, including $4.24 energy cost adjustment. Power company officials say the energy cost adjustment factor will be 10 cents less per 1,000 kilowatt hours in July due to increased water storage in power company dams, reduced need for purchased power, and adequate stockpiles. Although this summer is exposing a succession of 90-degree-plus days, power company officials say there is enough generating power to supply the increased demand.
We're fairly comfortable with our coal stockpiles right now. We'd like to have the stockpiles a little larger because there's no way to 100% totally predict what will happen in the future. But we have about 2.7 million tons stockpile. Now that equates to about 77 days supply. This includes some coal at our new Miller steam plant in West Jefferson, which is not operational yet. It will become operational about the middle of July. We hope in time for the July and the August peak. But we still urge our customers to use their energy wisely and efficiently.
From all indications, it's going to be a long, hot summer. Alabama Power Company suggests that we keep those thermostats turned up to help us through this tremendous heat wave. But may we suggest drinking lots of cold water and an occasional cold shower. Janet May, WSFA TV News.
The prospect of another sweltering summer faced the crowds and farmers that showed up for the capital city's first Farmers Market Day. The purpose of the event was to make those in this urban area of central Alabama more aware of the men and women responsible for supplying food to their households, with a particular emphasis on the individual farmer. Despite the heat, the day was dubbed a success, but at the same time it served as a reminder of last summer's maladies.
Really difficult to tell. If we can get some relief from this weather right now and get some rain, I don't think we're going to have a repeat of last year, although you've always got a possibility of that. I talked to several producers today that said they were beginning to get some worms in their corn and starting to have some problems this way.
What kind of turnout have you had for Farmers Market Day today?
Bill, the turnout's been really great. I think up and down the street we've got people just buying all the kinds of produce. I think we've probably seen at least 20, 25, 30,000 people. I haven't got a count, but everybody's down here and they're buying all the produce they want.
What kind of purpose has this served for the people of downtown Montgomery and for the farmer?
Well, for the farmer, it's giving him a chance to get acquainted with his consumer, the people that buy his product, and it's giving the consumer a chance to talk to the farmer and find out what his problems might be.
Bill Weaver, WSFA TV News.
Well, some of the problem areas as commonly known across the country that are the enforcement of agencies and the control that local government has over funding from the federal agencies that like HEW and HUD. The local politicians control the funds, and there's no enforcement by the federal government on these funds, so that these agencies, local agencies, or local politicians control things, and there's no input from the community at all. The community have no voice, have no control over what happens with the funds, what happens with programs, how the community is affected by those programs. So those were our concerns as relates to the task force being here. We told them that there need to be some regulations set up to where community could have some strong input.
From what you could tell from what they gave back to you today, does this seem to be a nationwide problem?
Yes, it sure does. It seems to be a nationwide problem. It's not just isolated to Montgomery or to Alabama. It's a nationwide problem, and hopefully it will be resolved if the reorganization takes place as we recommended that it takes place. Hopefully it will be resolved.
What would be the age range of prostitutes operating in Montgomery and this area that you know of?
14 to my age. 14, 17, 15. I know a lot of different people. That's the age range that I know about here in Montgomery. I've known of it dropping to 12, but usually there's other reasons for that, rather than just working.
Are you telling me that there are prostitutes operating in this city as young as 12 years old?
Yes, I'm telling you, I've had people call me and ask me, did I know any hookers 14 or 16 years old, real young. Some of your very good citizens would just prefer it that way.
When you say very good citizens, what do you mean? Do you mean there's some people in this town that would buy a service from children?
That's right. I assume that if they call me and ask me, did I know one of them, I guess they just call me to pass the time of day.
Do you know of pimps or people who provide girls this young to sell sex in this town?
Yes.
Did somebody tell you this, or do you know this for a fact?
Well, I know this for a fact. I've seen them.
Would they be black or white?
Black and white.
And where would these children operate as prostitutes?
I cannot answer that. I'd rather not.
What kind of effect do you think being in a business like prostitution would have on children from 12 years old up?
I would think it could be, in prostitution, that young, bad effect, emotionally, mentally, as well as physically, because some of these younger girls are the ones that's really catching it hard from a lot of these pimps. I'm kind of, well, I've always been, when I was working, very independent, and nobody could tell me nothing anyway, you know, ever. But some of these people, their mind, they get warped. It's drugs, it's getting away from home, their whole life is just all messed up anyway, so it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference anymore.
Is this a growing problem here, or is it being curbed by the police here in the city, or is it growing?
It's growing. I don't think the police can do a whole lot about it because I don't think they're going. Well, I just better not answer that, I guess. When I was in business and I was on call, I had from the working man, like just working everyday jobs, to doctors, lawyers, businessmen, people in their own business. When a girl is working in prostitution, they think of her as being on the street corner, just pulling in some kind of weirdo, but it's not like that. People with families, people that don't want to be bothered, people that don't have time to be bothered. And those are the kind of people you really need to deal with when you're in prostitution, is the kind of people that can't afford any trouble.
For instance, what kinds of people are we talking about?
Doctors, lawyers, judges, businessmen, people that has something to lose, people that has more to lose than you do. Because anytime you drop from that and you go into the streets, then you have got a problem.
Are you telling us that in the city of Montgomery you have had some judges and doctors and lawyers as customers?
Yes. That's what I'm telling you. Oh, that's nothing. Does that shock you? Because don't be. I'm telling you, I've had people call me and ask me, did I know any hookers 14 or 16 years old? That's what I'm telling you.
First of all, we're doing everything possible to see to it that we have an agreement by July 20th. However, there are some gut issues which we're very concerned about. Number one, the cost of living increase, the no layoff clause. We must retain those. I feel that they would be strike issues, but we're doing everything possible to reach an agreement that our membership, as well as the Postal Service and the American public, can live with.
What kind of progress has been made so far?
Well, there's been more progress in the negotiations this time than it has been in previous contracts. As an example, there's been more exchange of papers, more discussion. Previous negotiations over the years, they did not sit down until around June the 1st to get down to the gut issues. As you know, on June 20th, we presented our pay package to the United States Postal Service, so everything has been on the table and there has been a great deal of discussion.
Do you personally think that it will come to a strike, or do you think it can be averted?
I sincerely believe that a strike can be averted because the Postal Service also is working very hard to see that we can reach an agreement by July 20th.
We're certainly concerned with the expansion of communism throughout the world. We know how they've taken over the Eastern European countries, and now we see their heavy hand of communism throughout Africa. We see them in the Middle East and Latin America. We don't seem to be able to stop them in any way. So, of course, this leads to our defense. How are we in defense versus the Russians? The Russians are ahead of us. Well, they've got out-tanked us. They've got us outnumbered in Air Force. They've got us outnumbered in missiles. You name it, and they've got it. I think we've got about 2.5 million people under arms, most of them women now. They're talking about putting them in combat. That's an impossibility. God, I hope that never happens. And the Soviet has, I think it's 13,800,000 people under arms. We have no civil defense in this country. They have what we call a maximum civil defense. They know what they're doing. So somebody had better start paying some attention to the defense of this country, because the Soviet Union is not building up just to take care of their shores. It's quite obvious.
But that's not just a Carter problem alone.
No, I
He's
think
had others involved in that.
That's right. I think probably this started during the last two administrations, cut back in defense, and now we're paying the price for it. Somebody had better wake up before communism starts expanding into North American countries.
80,000 of these checks are mailed out each month to the blind, the disabled, and dependent children. Next month, some will be cut. The cuts mean 1,000 cases will be dropped completely from the welfare rolls. 18,000 cases will see a decrease in their monthly aid payments, and 2 other services to the poor, daycare and legal aid services, may be shut down. Deputy Pensions and Securities Commissioner Gil Jennings outlines the situation.
We're facing a critical budget situation. Right now, unless we get an additional $4.6 million from the general fund for next year, next fiscal year, we will have to institute a number of additional cutbacks. Our state money is matched by the federal government, so that $4.6 million in total, when you add that with the federal money we would lose, it will be between $15 and $20 million that this department would have to make up some way in the operation of our programs.
Do you see any way to make that kind of money up?
Well, it's very difficult. It means that we have to cut back services and other benefits that the department offers. We have struggled to make administrative cuts. We've reduced staff. We're already grossly understaffed. We explained this to the legislature, but we're just faced with this crisis.
One of those to be affected by the budget cuts is Alice Williams, who lives in a $40 a month apartment. She is blind and crippled. Her $30 a month welfare check pays for someone to shop and do other chores a sightless person cannot do. She says the proposed cut of $8.46 a month will mean a severe problem for her life.
It would just, I wouldn't be able to have anybody to come in to do my shopping and walking, and what I can do, well, I can't get up, like washing and things like that, wouldn't have any money to pay nobody to hang them out and do anything. It would just like I just be dropped and just wouldn't be anything I could do.
Okay.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Mrs. Williams expects her next welfare check to come in the mail on July 24th. And unless the situation changes by then, she will be losing $8 precious dollars that she says she needs to maintain a basic lifestyle here on Cleveland Avenue. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
For most members of the local media, it was their first meeting with new Auburn basketball coach Sonny Smith, and most were impressed. Smith comes to Auburn from East Tennessee State University, where he had a record of 30-23 in 2 seasons as head coach. Last year, he led East Tennessee to the Ohio Valley Conference Championship with a record of 18-9. Smith says he's looking forward to joining the Auburn athletic family, although he did not apply for the job.
I wanted to apply for the job, but I felt at the time that we had a program going at East Tennessee State University, and it wouldn't be right for me to look elsewhere at that time.
Having coached at VPI and then going to East Tennessee State, how much difference is there between your type of program at East Tennessee State and, say, a major conference such as this?
Well, I don't think that there's any difference in the competitive nature of, say, the Ohio Valley Conference and the Southeastern Conference. There's more talent in the Southeastern Conference. It's more publicized. The crowds are bigger. But from competitive nature, you had to go to war every night in the Ohio Valley Conference. I don't see a great deal of difference in me changing leagues. The competitiveness is going to be there. The crowds are going to be bigger. The talent is going to be somewhat better. But the nature of the battle is not going to change. And I've been in both situations, and I didn't feel any different in either one.
Smith describes himself as a quick-tempo coach. He likes his teams to run a controlled fast break with emphasis on the high-percentage shot. But Smith says his only promise to Auburn fans and alumni is his total dedication and loyalty to the job. And Smith says Auburn assistant coaches Herb Green and Herman Williams will remain on his staff. Dan O'Brien, WSFA TV Sports.
Flames soared high into the dark, rainy sky as a fire quickly spread over 5 of the gasoline storage tanks. Also in the fire's path were 3 fishing boats and a warehouse. An eyewitness to the explosion described what he saw.
We loud, large streak of lightning come down. And the next thing was loud report of the lightning, of course. And then this tank, just this red ball went up in the air, just spiraled up. And then there was little white lines like where the lightning had left.
Firefighting units from all of the surrounding towns responded to the blaze as quickly as possible. Water just couldn't bring the fire under control. But when the foam truck from Bates Field arrived, the flames were extinguished rapidly. All in all, it took 2 hours for the nightmare to end. The tanks are located right in the center of the fishing village, but no deaths occurred, and only 2 firemen sustained very minor injuries. From Biola Battery, Bruce Kramer, News Center 5.
No, not exactly, but it will be somewhere toward possibly the latter part of July, although that's not firm. But we have the legal question of whether or not a constitutional amendment that affects the taxes of people, ad valorem taxes, has to be voted on, and in the matter of 90 days, have to have 90 days before the vote for the amendment is submitted. That is, you've got to vote in time to have 90 days elapsed. The law is not completely clear on that question, but the attorneys, who are some of the best in Alabama, have said there would be a legal question, and therefore if that legal question arose and we lost it by not doing it within that time frame, then this could not be voted on in the November general election, and it would require a special election which would cost the taxpayers around $600,000, which in turn is money taken away from Medicaid and the elderly and the blind and the police and other functions of government, which I do not think is appropriate at this time. I'm sure that by calling the session when I'm going to call it, that involves a 90-day limit, in which they will have only a short period of time to do that, that they will do so because the legal question arose and it was not passed in time to meet that requirement, then that means that people's taxes would go up in many places, many counties in this state, and it would be the fault of the legislature instead of the fault of the governor. I will call it in plenty of time. They have themselves worked on this matter for 2 years and never could pass one. And yet we're reaching the deadline, the limit about the matter of rise in property taxes, and therefore I'm presenting legislation that may not be suitable to everyone, but in the judgment of the attorneys that are working and preparing it, it will, in their judgment, meet the requirements of the court and would not be declared unconstitutional.
During this Independence holiday, the Department of Public Safety expects at least 17 people to lose their lives. 12 of those deaths are anticipated to occur on rural highways and 5 in urban areas. According to Lieutenant Roy Smith, the #1 cause of these fatalities will be drunk driving.
The drinking driver is our major concern throughout the year, as well as the speeding driver. These two seem to have killed more over the years than any other type of driver.
What are the state troopers doing to keep this fatality number down?
Well, of course, off days have been canceled for the troopers across the state. They will be working extended shifts. Also, Alabama is one of the 48 continuous states that's cooperating in Operation CARE. That's the combined accident reduction effort on a nationwide scale, concentrating on enforcement of the nationwide 55-mile-an-hour speed limit and watching out for the reckless and the drunk driver, and especially paying close attention to major highways that run between several states, such as our our Interstate I-85, I-65, and highways like this. Of course, we'll be concentrating on those, but we'll also be paying close attention to the rural areas where we have the parties going on, we have the liquor being sold, and we have a potential of a problem there.
Smith says more state troopers will be patrolling this year in an effort to cut down on the number of accidents. He offered a few safety tips for the traveling motorist. Don't drink and drive, don't exceed the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit, and while driving, wear your safety belt. Also for the motorists during this nationwide holiday, the American Automobile Association says it will cost slightly more to travel over the long 4th of July weekend than it did for Memorial Day. According to one oil and gas journal, gasoline consumption in May increased 8%, which represented a big jump over a year ago. Although gas prices have gone up, motorists should find no problem getting fuel. So the sunny weather predicted for the holiday, more motorists may be on the highways, and for some, this could be their last holiday. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News, reporting.